A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
How's it going? For those of you watching on YouTube, I apologize. My hair is a little crazy. It is a
little frazzled. Look, can we see the back? Let's see.
The keratin is officially out. And
what happened to the weekly blowouts?
I didn't think it was worth it this week because there is a big nor'easter in New York.
Oh, right.
So it's been like very intensely raining here today and yesterday, like strong winds. And normally I would just stay inside, but which is what I was going to talk to you about today. Brings me to my discussion is that I had the dog. I had the dog who doesn't. Unfortunately, I can't believe they haven't. I guess they do have indoor. You can technically let your dog go inside with like pads or something, but that's not really a good precedent to set. So I've got Ronnie, who unfortunately, timing wise, is having a severe case of, for some reason, only nighttime diarrhea for the past 4 nights.
Oh no, only nighttime diarrhea.
Nighttime. I don't really understand how that's possible, why that is. During the day, he's like fine. It's only at night. And I have to say that I guess these entered like that teenager phase, they say, which starts around like 6 months and lasts, according to the internet, at like a year and a half. He's been a lot. He's been, and he's a little, and he's had some like health issues. Like he had an ear infection, and then he had like a kind of like a staph infection or something like on his skin, which apparently it's like not as scary as it sounds for humans, but like, he's just like, so he needed like medicated baths and then nightly ear drops. And now he has, and then that was finally cleared up. And I was like, all right, like we got this, like everything seems to be going well. And then the nighttime diarrhea started. So he's in that teenager phase. So he's like a very bitey and he's like not fully listening. And like, so there's this storm out and he, obviously like we get up in the middle of the night to let him out. But then after he goes, he's really into digging.
Right.
And it's torrential downpour.
Oh gosh.
And so he's getting like, so now you've got to take him on like a leash. So then, my hair, I'm outside with my hair. It's like you got to take him on a leash so he doesn't go and dig. So he's not like 4 a.m. extremely muddy.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been a run for my money. I will say it's funny because last night it was like 4 a.m. I had just gotten, but he went in, if I can, he's kind of like, it's annoying because he's so loud during the day when he wants to go out at night. He's just like quietly like, oh, they're sleeping. I'll just like take a shit behind the couch so they don't see it. And then you like awaken to a smell at like 4 a.m. And I'm like, okay. And so then I'm kind of like, I wish you just barked and then we could just have gotten this over with. But now it's like a 15-minute cleanup process.
Oh gosh.
And then I'm making dog ownership sound very fun.
No, scare people because it's real.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, it was going really well for a while. And I was like, this is like, I feel like just when you think, I'm sure it's probably like little like kids where you're like, I feel like I've got this thing going. And then there's like, actually, no.
Right. Well, I wonder if you maybe lightened up a little bit. Like, in the beginning, it's like, oh, he's just a puppy and I don't want him to get a morsel of a thing and we're going to watch him like a hawk. Right. And now maybe you're kind of like not watching him as much. So he's eating something he shouldn't, or
it's possible. Yeah.
Or just these little things where you kind of take your eye off the prize and you're like, all right, we're in a routine. You're kind of self-sufficient. I can focus back on other things. And now you're waking up to the stench of diarrhea.
Yes.
In the middle. I remember with Ralphie that like I'd wake up and be like,
something. What's going right? Something isn't.
Am I
Something's off here.
hallucinating, or
Right.
like it literally can like wake you out of a sleep?
Yeah, it's strong. But then I gotten back in bed and it's 4 a.m. and I'm thinking, like, I was thinking back to this podcast and I was thinking, like, let me not like catastrophize it. Let me not overanalyze it. Let me just like ride the wave of what must be temporary, I assume.
Yes, it is. It is.
And this is a phase of his, puppyhood. And he will, it will, just like the previous phase, which I liked and thought would last forever, changed. This one will change too. And I was literally just like, let me just breathe through this instead of like catastrophizing or playing this out or like thinking about how miserable I am because I've been doing this now for like 4 nights and it's starting
that is a long time. I'll tell you that. Like that's,
I mean, thankfully it's been on a weekend so I can take some naps during the day and it's not like, the worst thing that's ever happened, but it definitely cumulatively like gets to you.
I'm glad that you did that. I do think there is this tendency of the mind when you're uncomfortable, like if you're tired or you're cleaning up, unpleasant fluids or what, there's this tendency of the mind to go to this place of like, what do I need to change about this to make sure that this never happens again?
Right.
And that's when it gets sticky. And that's when you start to like future trip on like, well, what if? And then like, how long can I do this for? And maybe this was a bad decision, or maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I need to get a dog run that's inside the house. Like you just kind of like start going crazy in your mind with like how to fix it. But what you did was great. It's like, this is a moment, it will pass. And next week when we talk again, the diarrhea will be gone, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
But like we almost sometimes don't stop to be like, wow, this is great. Like there's no more diarrhea. You just kind of like accept that you're back to normal and move on with your life and find the next problem that's different than the diarrhea problem. So it is nice sometimes to not only realize, okay, this is a phase, but then when the phase passes to kind of be like, oh, right, that was a thing for a while.
Now I don't have to deal with that.
Now I don't have to deal with that. Like, I feel like I have that with parenting a lot where something in the moment about the kids, like, seems like just never ending. And then you're like, is there something wrong with my parenting? Is there something wrong with my child? Like why, especially like if my kids had like behavior problems in public. I remember that was like a phase where Brooks would just like behave really poorly, like when we tried to take him out to dinner or do something in public, and it just made the whole thing torturous. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe there's, he's like oppositional defiant and what's wrong. And now he's great, but I don't really stop to be like, oh, right, that was a big deal for a long time. And now he's fine. I'm just like, okay, great. He's fine. What's the next thing?
Right. Yeah. And I think the gratitude element of it, or like even in the midst of those, even like while you're going through him kind of freaking out at the dinner table, which is hard to do, or like last night while I'm cleaning it up, hard to do is like, what are the things that are going well?
Right.
While you're doing the thing that's not, because
like
I do think that helps
air
you
conditioning's working, or the heating isn't broken, or like, my back doesn't hurt, or, whatever. Just these little things where you're like, I could be bending over, cleaning this up, and my back could hurt.
Right.
Or,
Yeah. And there's a leak because it's raining, and I could be outside or whatever, like it could, or anything else that just like happens to be going well that day. So, that was my little perspective shift.
I like it. I know. And you mentioned last week something about like when you try to meditate that you don't feel almost like the
immediate gratification.
Yeah, like there's something that, like you're like, what's the point of this? I don't feel anything, or like it doesn't feel maybe like it's worth it or whatever. And like those are those moments when you're like, part of why you meditate is so that you can notice your own mindset, like as it's happening. Like a lot of people with meditation, they get kind of frustrated or annoyed with it because they think that something more is supposed to be happening than just I'm aware of my mind in this moment. Like if you can't make your mind be completely quiet, it feels like it's not working or it's frustrating. Like even what you just did, which is like, I'm aware that my mind is being tempted to go in this direction. And I have this power to kind of choose
Right.
my mindset and bring it back. Like
Bring
that's
myself
the
back.
stuff. So
Yeah,
that
that's a
was
great
kind
point.
of, even though maybe you weren't intentionally like meditating, you were kind of meditating. You were noticing what you were thinking and you were taking control over that process rather than just letting it go on autopilot to like future tripping to the worst case scenario of like what could go wrong. So
Right. I like that.
love it.
Okay. I did it.
You
Good for
did
me.
it. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, how was your weekend? I hope it was good.
Weekend was good. Definitely this is the time of year where I like living here because it's kind of like cold and maybe not amazing weather back in New York, and we're still like outside in the pool. Like I'm outside. This is the crazy. Like I was literally outside yesterday for 10 minutes, and I come back and I have a tan line.
You
I'm
don't
like,
have to brag.
I mean,
I'm just kidding. No, that's
it's October,
yeah.
mid-October, and I'm not even really trying to tan. Like I try to take good care of my skin, but it's kind of cool that I could just like pop outside for, 10 minutes and get a little fresh up,
Yeah. There's definitely something underrated about just feeling the sun on your skin.
Yes.
Just feeling
Yeah,
like the warmth of like the natural air is
it's
really
true. And even in my older age, I can't take the sun. Like 10 minutes of like direct sun on my face is usually enough. The sun here is pretty hot, but oh my God, when I was 17, I would just bake like hours. I don't know
yeah.
how. That's like a different
What a
world.
life.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Um But yeah, that's the weather update for Texas and New York.
All
And
right.
let's get into our episode. We've got some great emails today. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can call 646-363-6294, or you can email us your question, your feedback, anything you want at oversharing@betches.com. You can subscribe. You get all the episodes a day early and ad free. And you get 2 bonus episodes a month. There's already an episode out, bonus episode out. There'll be another one this Thursday. So if you are interested in subscribing, check it out. We love our subscribers. I don't hear any negative feedback about the subscription stuff. So I'm assuming you guys really like it. Or if you want to get even more involved, you can join one of Dr. Naomi's therapy groups. How do they do that?
Yes. Come find me, find us, our community at naomibernstein.com. Always accepting new applications for members to join. I will find you the perfect group. The group right now, we would love men. Right now, it's all women. But if you're a man and you're interested in joining, we would love to have a new perspective. It's all about perspective, or not all about, but a lot of it is about perspective. And I'm every week astonished at the wisdom that these women bring, how supportive and loving, and just like they think about each other in between sessions. And it's really just an amazing space to feel heard and also kind of checked a little bit when you get too into your own stuff. So come join us, naomibernstein.com.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this episode. I'll read our first email. This week's Overshare is brought to you by Nobody Wants This on Netflix. You know how in relationships, the little things suddenly become big things? Like whose turn is it to do the dishes, or whether moving in together means sharing closet space or surrendering it? In season 2 of Nobody Wants This, Joanne and Noah are navigating all of that and then some. First comes love, and then comes life, with all the family drama, career stress, and did I just say too much? Moments along the way. And speaking of how the little things can feel like big things, today's email is all about what happens when the tiniest habits start raising the biggest questions. I will read this. Let's get into it. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I want to start by saying how much I love the podcast. I'm a proud benefits subscriber, and I look forward to every new episode. You're both so funny and insightful, and I feel like I learn something every time I listen while also laughing out loud. Thank you.
Aw.
My boyfriend and I are both 25, have been together since 19, living together since 23, and we just got a dog in May. Lately, the smallest things with our dog are making me nervous about big picture compatibility down the line. Here's the situation. The other night, I was getting ready for bed, bathroom, meds, water, the whole routine. And when I come back, my dog had climbed into my spot. We laughed about it at first, but when I moved her, she hopped right back in. Meanwhile, my boyfriend was curled up in this banana shape that took up a ton of space. When I asked him to straighten out a little so I could actually get in bed, he brushed it off with, "Don't worry, she'll move soon." When I pushed again, he acted like I was asking the world of him, saying, "What? This is just how I naturally lay," as if a tiny adjustment for me was too much. It's not really about the bed, though. It's that I want him to be a little more empathetic in small moments. Like if the dog's water bowl is completely empty right next to her food bowl, why not fill it when you're already feeding her? He just doesn't think of it. I'm in therapy working on voicing my needs, and I felt like I did that here, but he seems too rigid to meet them. So now I'm stuck wondering, am I asking too much? Am I spiraling? Is it fair to use dog dad energy as a preview for real dad energy? Or am I putting too much weight on small frustrations? At what point do little lapses like not filling the water bowl, not making space in bed, become red flags about partnership and co parenting? Am I spiraling by connecting his dog habits to future parenting? Or is that exactly the kind of thing I should be paying attention to? What do you think?
Yeah. Couples getting a dog is kind of like what I talk about, like planning the wedding. It like brings a lot of stuff to the surface.
For sure.
And it's a great exercise. I mean, look, you don't want the dog to suffer, but does bring up a lot of stuff around communication and follow through and
Shared
doing things.
responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doing things when you don't feel like doing them and taking a load off of your partner's plate. Because a lot of times before that, it's like my load is my load, your load is your load. Maybe there's like a couple dishes in the sink or, things like that. But taking care of an animal, like in your situation, if there's diarrhea in the middle of the night or the things she's bringing up seem pretty small. Maybe they haven't had a diarrhea bout yet. Seems like
You guys could use one. It'll really show all the cracks in the relationship.
So I get what she's saying, and I think it's very normal. A lot of couples do struggle when they first get a puppy or an animal together. It brings up a lot of these issues.
Right. And I think I like this as a good preview because, we talked about this last week where a lot of the times with a new baby, the woman is like more biologically tied to it with like nursing and, pregnancy and postpartum and hormones and things like that. A dog is like kind of even.
Yeah.
Like there's no real reason for one person to innately need to do more or less for that. So it's almost like a good test of like when things are super equal, how does it work out? So I do like it in that respect. I will say they're both 25, right? And a 25-year-old, not to like excuse anything he's doing, but at 25, I don't think I would have been ready for a kid. I don't know if I don't know if I would react the same way to having the dog that I have now. And to say he doesn't seem like he's ready to be a dad might be accurate at 25, regardless of if he might be a great dad in the future. He's not like 35 and acting like this. He's 25. You're 25 too. So I could see why she's like, well, I'm 25 and I'm doing it.
Yes.
But I think like there is a little bit of like, I think that's not an unimportant thing to take into account when you're thinking of your future together. Like he's not probably a adult man who's ready to get into a huge responsibility, especially if this is his attitude. I don't think that necessarily means he never will be.
Right. Yeah, but I have a feeling that she's probably thinking, I don't know, that maybe she would want to do this sooner. My hunch is, I have no clue, but they've been together since they're 19. They've been living together for a couple of years. So she might be focusing on this because of that, because she's like, okay, I'm 25. Maybe like in a year or two, we'll start. Well, they're not married yet, assuming they want to do that first. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he could not be ready now and be ready. He might feel like it's more. I do think, again, just like before marriage, I think before you get a dog together, you have to have some of these conversations. Like, I think it is important. If you are a couple out there thinking about getting a dog, and I get why there's that temptation. You're like, all right, we've been together for a while. We want to mix things up, do something new, kind of have this shared experience of caretaking. But there's a lot of important questions to ask. Like, who is going to do the middle of the night puppy training? Who's going to be the one that's going to be responsible for vet visits and feeding? And, it is important to talk about all this stuff beforehand so that you know who's going to do what, and it's not too late. So I think, it sounds like it's more for her. I don't think there is this division of labor thing that's bothering her. It's more maybe like she's
proactivity.
Yeah.
Like, or caretaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wants some caretaking. She wants some proactivity. Maybe there's a fear that she's turning into like the default parent.
Right.
With the water bowl thing. Like, you've got to see that I don't want to have to be the one that's like, hey, by the way, the dog needs water. Like, that seems like a basic thing that.
Right. Or if the dog is sitting in my spot, it's like an us problem.
Yes.
Not like a me problem.
Yes.
So I can see that. And I think that's worth a conversation. Even because, again, I wouldn't catastrophize it into like, is he going to be a horrible dad? I would take the situation at hand and like focus on what's happening now.
Yep. And I do think, as with most of these things, when you're trying to figure out if the person that you're with is your person, like if they are a good life partner for you, it's less about how they handle a particular situation and more about how they handle communicating about that situation. So just because somebody shows up, like if you're intending to marry someone and have children with them, you're looking at decades and decades and decades of being with them, and they're going to change. They're not going to be that person, which is why I'm always like, you have to be married to marriage, more so even than you're married to the person that you're choosing, because they could change. Anything could happen. They could go through a trauma. They could go through a loss. They could, you're married to this person. So it's more about how you can communicate through these life stages and changes and things like that than about, are they showing up as the perfect person that you thought they were when you picked them? So I would bring this up. And she's saying she's working on being more assertive. And this is an interesting thing too to look at, is like, sometimes just asking in the moment for that thing that you want, that's great. That's a great first step. Like, can you please move over? Trying to get into the bed. Great first step. I don't think he's picking up what you're putting down as like, there's a bigger picture for you about these little moments. And sometimes phase 2 has to be, we're going to sit down and talk about this pattern that I'm seeing and how it's making me feel, and see how he handles that conversation.
Right.
Just these little things are happening. And, I feel sometimes like you're not aware of my experience in this dog ownership relationship that we're having. Like, you're not seeing kind of what I'm left to do, or like you said, it's an us problem if the dog's in the bed, not a me problem. And it's just making me feel a little bit unseen or alone in this, as a bigger conversation than just, can you please move over? Because he might just not be picking up that that's actually something that's important to you.
Right.
Or is building up. Like, I think that's when you have to, go to the next level of asserting yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I love the advice to just focus on the way that they're communicating, and if you can get them, if you guys can get on the same page with communication, because like you said, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, like, I wouldn't judge it based on the actual actions, because at 25, and again, unless you guys are talking about having kids, like now, I think you could change your actions or your thoughtfulness or your proactivity by the time you want them. But I think it's harder to to change or get at, especially in the same relationship, to get out of a certain way of communication style. So I think focusing on, can he improve that, or can you both kind of get on the same page with that, is really going to tell you more about your long-term compatibility than, like you said, any one action.
Right. Totally. And it is a lot of people, when you're dating and you're trying to figure out if this is a person that you want to marry, it's really hard because you start, especially as you get closer to it, you start like judging their actual behaviors without looking at like how they can communicate or change, or are willing and capable of putting effort into changing, which is so much more of an indicator of a good partner, or a compatible partner, than how they're showing up on day one.
Right.
Like I remember when I first,
or any given day. Yeah.
Yes. When I first met Jeff and we first moved in together, I had one day where I was so tweaked because like the apartment was a mess. I was kind of doing everything. I was cleaning this, that, and the other. And he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to stop for a car wash on the way home." And I like went out and got in his car, and his car was immaculate. And I was so irritated because I was like, you're taking such good care of this little space that's like yours, personal
right.
space. Yeah. And like our shared space was not cared for in the same way. But I still remember this because I sat down with him and I expressed how I felt. And it was literally like game changer. Like he just wasn't aware of that was happening until I brought it to his attention. And like almost ever since that day, he's been like an equal partner in doing things around the house.
That's great.
It was just like, especially if you're young, like 25, I don't know if like, his mother did too much for him, or he didn't really have, like, sometimes it just takes a little like, psh, psh, like wake up.
Right. No, I totally agree. I think it's about their willingness to get into it and to, adjust behaviors on both ends, and I think like throughout a marriage, you have so many of those moments. I'm sure that was the one about the cleaning, but I'm sure there's a million other little things where it's like, That's why it's like when someone says we never fight, I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's like a red flag thing.
Right.
Maybe fight, there's a different threshold for what you would call a fight. Maybe you wouldn't have even called that a fight. Maybe you'd call that like a
stern
disagreement
talking to
or something like that. I think that counts as a fight in terms of like what a fight means for a relationship. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like when someone says we never fight, that's weird because it's like, how have you not, you can't, there's no one who you're going to align with completely perfectly on everything where you're not going to have a disagreement on. That just doesn't exist, I think, unless you marry your identical twin.
Right. And even then, but yeah, totally. I agree. And people are scared to have these nobody really likes conflict. You don't want to upset someone. You don't want to make them feel like they're not doing enough, but that's the important thing, is learning together how to have these conversations more than anything. So,
right. Yeah. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you for writing in, and thank you again to Netflix for sponsoring today's episode. Season 2 of Nobody Wants This goes beyond the rom-com spark and into everything that comes after. The real-life, laugh-out-loud, sometimes cringy moments of trying to actually make it work. Kristen Bell, Adam Brody, and an incredible ensemble cast prove that staying together isn't just complicated, it's the best part of the story. Watch Nobody Wants This Season 2 on October 23rd, only on Netflix. Okay. You want to read our Betchicist?
All right, I will read this. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. My question is it rude to skip a wedding gift for the bride and groom if you're traveling to their destination wedding? Here's the situation. My good friend from college is getting married in Hawaii this winter. She's been touting it as an affordable time of year to travel there. That couldn't be less true. I want her to have the wedding of her dreams, but it's frustrating that she's spinning it as an inexpensive vacation. Call a spade a spade. My flight is $1,500 and the hotel room block is $400 a night. She also has planned for guests to attend a dinner luau on wedding day, morning ceremony, lunch reception. She doesn't have an exact price, but from what I can see on the website, it's going to be about $300 per person. I never understand why these luau's are like insanely expensive. We
I
did
guess you
one
get a
too.
show. I've done one of them too. They're like so like milk the tourist.
Yes.
But I liked it.
Yeah,
But
no,
I
I
see what
like
you're
it.
saying. Yeah, it was very expensive.
It was very expensive, and it was like rice and like, some roast
Chicken.
pork
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
They had like a whole roasted pig, which
I think it was open bar. Maybe that was part of
oh,
it.
maybe.
I don't know.
Anyway, I get it. They got to make money, but that does seem like a lot for a night out. My girlfriends and I explored the idea of staying at a different hotel to save some money, but when the bride caught wind of this, she became upset because she signed a contract that she'd pay for any unused rooms. Furthermore, I've decided to only stay 4 nights due to my budget and work schedule. The bride is trying to convince us to stay longer, even though she and her husband will be enjoying their honeymoon on a different island. $3,400 in without any food or extra activities. Do I really need to add a couple $100 on top for a gift too? My presence is the present, Betch. All right.
Okay. First, validated. Bride sounds super annoying. I agree. It's like one thing to pay for this stuff, but it's like have some appreciation. Don't pretend this is like super inexpensive. Don't pretend that it's that because nothing about this sounds particularly cheap.
Yes. Yep. It's not like they each got a room for $50 a night. Like,
right. Or she's subsidizing it.
Yeah.
Which, if she wants everyone to stay at the hotel would be a nice thing to offer. Something like that. And like, again, especially if you're going to say, please use these rooms because I prepaid for them, like, throw something there. I totally validate that this is very expensive and it is made more irritating by the lack of acknowledgement that it is.
Right. I mean, look, maybe it would be more expensive in the spring, but that doesn't mean it's an inexpensive time to go. I don't know. Like
the winter seems like the time you'd want to go there.
To go to a warm climate.
I don't know.
So, I mean, I get the bride is probably having this dilemma where she has to guarantee a certain number of rooms, but you have to make sure that everybody wants to do it before you do that. Like you have to find out who's in before you guarantee the room.
Totally. And I had, we both had destination weddings. For my destination wedding, I also had to guarantee a certain number of rooms, or like we had to prepay for all of the rooms that we reserved. And then we'd get back the money for anyone who actually reserved them.
Right.
But this was like a big discussion when we were doing it of like, we're going to reserve the smallest amount that we're able to. And then we'll add on as as we get a better sense of who's coming.
Right. Cause it's hard to be in that position where you're like, you have to basically you're going to be annoyed and out money if people don't want to spend $400 a night or plus $1,500 on a plane ticket.
And I agree. I get that it adds another layer of like a little bit of a stress to the situation, but you kind of have to go conservative on that. And I have to say, the more rooms that you're giving, the more concessions they're giving you. So it's not like you're not like, I remember the thing, it was like, if there's like 40 rooms if you guys are booking 40 rooms, you get this little extra thing at the wedding or something like that. Like you do, it's not like she's not making out in some way from the thing, which is again, annoying that you're kind of being like going against what you would normally do, which is stay at a less expensive place. Like the fact that I could see being kind of like internally a little like anxious about the fact that people were booking outside rooms, but I don't think you could force people to stay there for your own situation. So bride sounds annoying. I think it's unethical what she's doing. The gift thing is a different question, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a person who had a destination wedding, and I think I had people that did this, I honestly don't remember anymore. I don't think after spending all that, you need to bring, a $250 or $300 gift. I think you could write a really nice card, maybe frame a photo of you guys or a photo, whatever. It's a nice token of affection that's inexpensive, a little scrapbook or something sweet. I don't think you need to come with a hefty check after all that. That's my opinion as someone who did this, if someone came after spending all that and didn't bring a gift, I wouldn't be mad.
I agree. I don't know if I wouldn't be, I don't think I wouldn't be, I think I would notice if they didn't bring a gift. I don't think I'd be mad, especially if they came all that way. I do think this is where a registry is really convenient because normally I would give a check or you would expect someone to give a check for a wedding that they're attending. But I think a registry is great in this instance because you can just pick a super inexpensive item off of their registry. And like, I don't remember the amount of gifts that anyone gave, but I do remember a gift or no gift. And I think anything is just like a gesture. And I think it's totally reasonable to go less. But I would get a picture frame off of the registry or, there's usually a wide range of prices on there. And I would do one of those. So then you're not writing like a $25, $30 check.
Right.
Instead, you're like getting them a gift that they want, which I think, again, is totally reasonable, especially if you're having a wedding in Hawaii, which is a notoriously expensive state. And you are expected to this luau thing should be, she should be paying for that if she's expecting people to go to that. I don't think you can like host a non-optional
wedding event that,
luau.
Yes. That's like it seems like it's it's like the after party of the wedding is what it sounds like. Yeah. Morning ceremony, lunch reception, and then everyone goes to the luau, but you have to pay. That does seem a bit off. And it also feels uncomfortable to be like, I'm going to skip the luau because that's like kind of seems like part of the whole.
Right. If the ceremony is the morning and then the thing is the afternoon, then you're spending the night like not at the luau. It feels weird. But then you're like kind of paying for your own wedding
to attend
meal
like a wedding event. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. I think I'd go with the registry gift. And honestly, it's less about because you need to get her a gift. And I think more about for you, the mental energy, because for me, when I'm like anxious that I haven't like done the normal social etiquette thing, that weighs on me a lot more than spend. Again, I don't know what your budget is, but for me, it would be like if I were to spend a $30 on a picture frame or something like that off the registry, and then I could cross getting a wedding gift off of my list of anxieties of. Is this person mad at me? Should I have gotten something? It's more like
then
the
we'll
mental
get a letter.
load.
We'll be getting a letter in 6 months. I went to this wedding. I didn't buy a gift. She's no longer responding to my texts.
Right. I think the mental load of like, that's usually how I feel about like when I'm tipping or when I'm giving a gift. I'm like, if I'm debating if it's better to give the less amount or the bigger amount, I usually, and again, obviously this is like somewhat of a privileged take, but I usually try to go, if I can afford it, I usually try to go with the higher amount so that I don't have to think about it. It's not even about the person. It's just so that I don't have to worry that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, I hear you. I do think though, like I'm going to have a little bit of a different take in that I think you can just do a very nice token of affection. That's like, you guys are college friends. Maybe you make, write like a poem and put it in a frame or kind of.
Sounds like more work than the one of my suggestions.
Yeah, no, it's definitely more work. But if she's kind of like, I don't want to spend money,
right? I
don't want to spend anymore. That's a way. There are, you could do one of those photo books for probably like $25 or. I mean, if there's a registry, great. I love it. If there's not a registry, I agree. Writing, you don't want to write a check for $20. That sounds a little crazy, but I wouldn't feel bad.
An acrostic poem if there's no registry.
Yes, and it could be inexpensive along the left side, and then you could write all your thoughts about the definition of the word inexpensive.
Right. I is for my irritation with having to fly out to Hawaii for your wedding.
Yes. N is for no awareness of the true costs.
Sounds fun. Like a great poem. Send it if you decide to write it. Send it to us. We'll read it on the show.
Very therapeutic. Look, I hear you. I don't, and I do think people did this at my wedding, and I didn't feel a way about it. I was happy they came. I realized that it was a lot of money for people, and it was more about the experience of having friends and family all in this beautiful tropical place together. So yeah, I think you're good either way, but I wouldn't show up with nothing. I would show up with a little token of affection somehow.
I think we're both in agreement that at the very least a card,
Yeah.
something to show something, just again, less as a transaction and more just as she's clearly a good enough friend that you're willing to spend this to go to the wedding. So I think even just a nice card saying how much she means to you.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the moment, but generally.
Right.